Well, let's get to it. I appreciate your time. I know you've had a busy morning, so greatly appreciate this. I want to start with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And this is a guy who's played a while, and you know that road, it's hard to get to that point. How impressive is it what he's done? I know he's not had this Hall of Fame career, but to do what he's done at all these stops and to still be playing at this age seems kind of difficult.
Well, it's been Hall of Fame with the business of sports, right?
Right.
No, it's I have a tremendous amount of respect for Ryan Fitzpatrick and what he's done in his career, having played against him back when he was like in the St. Louis Rams. He's to me, he's a winner. He's a gunslinger. I thought he really got shafted last year in Miami. They had a really good team. I think he was number 5 in the NFL in QBR, and then they just benched him because they had a bye week, and they had a very talented young quarterback that they had drafted. But I just thought it was way too early to go to Tua. He had a shortened off season, coming off of an injury. They're in the hunt to, make the playoffs, and it just got ripped from Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I don't know the reasons why they ended up making that change, but, I thought Ryan Fitzpatrick plus Chan Gailey was a pretty special thing that they had going on offense there.
How hard is it because one of the things he's talked about is that he feels like he's playing his best ball at this stage, which is very difficult to obtain. How hard is that to be? And do you buy that?
Yeah, no, that doesn't surprise me at all. Like I think I started 9 games as a 40-year-old, and people would always ask me like, oh, is it hard as you're getting older? Like, I think for most positions, the older you get, obviously the slower you get, so the worse you get. But for quarterbacks, it's a little bit different. The older you get, I feel like the slower the game gets for you.
Right.
Like, especially if you're not a quarterback that was relying on outrunning somebody anyway, or something like that. Like, as long as your arm strength's there, which is a thrower, I think most retired quarterbacks can still throw it just like they always threw it. It's about taking the beating and staying healthy. Like, that's the biggest challenge. It's not 7-on-7, it's 11-on-11 tackle football. And so like what I've seen from Ryan Fitzpatrick is I've seen the game slow down for him. He's seen all this different stuff. Some of these defensive coordinators are younger than him. And quite honestly, some of them probably get psyched out a little bit going up against such a veteran quarterback. And even with the rules that the way they are right now, you can't hit a quarterback the same way you used to. You can't hit defenseless receivers the same way you used to. It's almost like a veteran quarterback, aside from the salary that they make, there's huge value in having a guy that's been there, done it, to me, while you're developing a younger, cheaper talent underneath. But it doesn't surprise me at all that he's played at such a high level. What does surprise me is that he's been able to run the ball, take the hits that he's taken, and get up, with a smile on his face. There must be extra padding in that beard of his or something. But no, I think he's a winner, and he's kind of a weapon. And I think there's a lot of defenses that he's not really a guy that they'd want to go up against.
Did you face him in a game at all? Ever?
I'm sure. I think I did I think I was in Seattle, and we had a guy on our team from Harvard. And when I think it was like Kurt Warner and Mark Bulger were hurt, Mike Martz's offense, they played Ryan Fitzpatrick that year. And this teammate of mine from Harvard was like, oh, wait till you see Ryan Fitzpatrick. He was amazing at Harvard. And we, of course, all the teammates were like, oh, you're just saying that because he went to Harvard, whatever. But he comes in, I think is his first start, threw for some crazy amount of yards. I think it was like 300 and something, and had a great game in that Mike Martz offense. And so he's had so many different coaches and so many different offenses. With him now being with Scott Turner, that's essentially the Mike Martz system. So he's an expert in all these systems. So like, I think he's a really, really underrated player.
What has the national perception around this franchise changed over the last year at all, do you think?
For sure, in a lot of different ways. I think they've actually done a really nice job in rebranding. I grew up forever. It was the Washington Redskins. Like, how could you get rid of that? And now the Washington football team sounds kind of awesome, actually. Like, I like the name. I think it should stick. Their uniforms, I would say, are maybe some of the best uniforms in the game. Did a they're clean, they're nice, they're great. That defense and what they were able to do last year with the lack of, offensive power. They really didn't have much offensive power last year, and to be so relevant come playoff time was really impressive. So I think when I think of Washington right now, I'm thinking tough, gritty, incredible defense, great D line, a team that could turn the corner in that division, which is certainly winnable for them.
When you look at the pass rush duo of Chase Young, Montez Sweat, where does that stack up? Montez is already talking about them breaking records, which is, maybe jumping ahead a little bit, but that's what they're talking about. Where do you think that stacks up now, and where could it get to?
Yeah, talk is cheap, but turn on the film, and that's not cheap. Those guys were amazing last year. That D line, you have to put them up there as one of the top D lines in football potentially. You glance at the depth chart and you're like, wait, that can't be right. They're all first rounders, like every single one of them. No, they're like, listen, I know what it's like as a quarterback trying to go up against, there's 5 offensive linemen, there's 4 D linemen typically. So the way you do pass pro typically is you say, okay, our 5 on your 4, and we're going to choose which way we send that extra lineman for either a 4-on-3 or a 3-on-2 or a 2-on-1. Well, if you have 2 guys that are a real problem, you can't block 1-on-1. Like, you just take your playbook and throw it out. Like you can't run any of your normal plays. You have to keep extra people in, and that just invites more defenders in the box. So that's why you see so many people investing so much money on the D line, but usually they don't hit home runs with the D linemen the way that, Washington has. So I was talking about this yesterday with Teddy Bruschi and Rex Ryan at our Sunday NFL Countdown shoot, and they were both saying that they thought that Chase Young is probably the front runner. I think they both said this, the front runner for defensive player of the year, or they were arguing about it. But like, I can't disagree. I mean, from what I've seen on film, I can't disagree.
When you're as a quarterback and you have a line like that, what kind of coverages do you want to see, and what kind do you not like to see that makes it easier for the pass rush?
Well, I would hope that they would blitz, because if they're blitzing, now your great pass rushers, let's just say it's Chase Young. Instead of him pass rushing, he's just more sort of taking the inside edge of a tackle so that someone else can get free and unblocked. So like that, and now there's less people in the back end for me to contend with in pass coverage. So the worst thing is when you're able to get a pass rush with just 4 guys.
Right.
That's a challenge for an offense. And that's really what Washington has done. And even going back to when Ron Rivera, when I was playing against Ron Rivera, when he was in Carolina, mostly, when they went to the Super Bowl, they were able to get a pass rush with 4 guys, and they didn't trick you. There was nothing, like, you'd study the film and it was like, by Wednesday, you'd say to yourself, there's really nothing to study. They're just better than us. Right. They're not tricking us. That's just Julius Peppers, with a really awesome swim move on your tackle. Fortunately for us, I remember we played them in the championship game, NFC championship game. One of our strengths of our team happened to be tackle. So it kind of was a wash, but that's not the case for most teams. Most teams don't have 2 great tackles. And so that's why most teams would struggle going up against Washington's defense.
One of the big things, the points of emphasis, they added William Jackson III to corner, drafted Benjamin St. Juste to corner, both longer, can play press. Does that make it harder? Because that's one of the things they want to diversify, that the coverages that they can play behind that line to make it harder. Does press man make it harder if you have that good rush? Would you rather see zone?
I think it, either way, it gives them more options or gives them more flexibility. But what I've seen from Washington, they get creative on 3rd down. They're not creative on 1st and 2nd down necessarily, but on 3rd down, they get creative. And where that versatility, comes in is when, possibly you've got a younger quarterback who hasn't seen a lot. So that's one instant. Or another time would be just like if some of these teams have great wide receivers, and it's hard to play DB right now. I mean, it's very, very hard to play DB. And now you get hurry up offenses. And it seems like every time the NFL changes a rule, it's really to the benefit of an offensive side of the ball type of thing. But no, just in general, though, having the ability to play man coverage in today's NFL, it's valuable. It's incredibly valuable. And I think even in this preseason, what you're seeing a lot of people play man coverage in the preseason, that once the regular season comes, they're going to play zone.
Right.
And they play more man in the preseason because it helps the scouts see how good of a man player that person is. But like when the regular season comes, some of these man teams, they just go back to doing what they do. They play cover two, or they play a lot more zone coverage. But in the preseason, they just want to get a look. And they're not overly concerned with like, hey, we lost the game or someone got beat deep. We just want to see what kind of skills you have.
The other thing I'm wondering too, Washington plays the Chargers in week 1. It's Chase Young, it's Justin Herbert. 2 years ago in the draft, there was a choice, Chase Young, and then Justin Herbert and Tua are there. I don't think there was really a choice here. They wanted Chase Young. But in hindsight, when you look back at that, is that still the right decision?
Yeah, because you can't look at it in a vacuum. I think, they had just drafted Dwayne Haskins.
Right.
And so, doing that back to back, I think the safe bet was Chase Young. It reminds me a little bit what the Cleveland Browns did with Myles Garrett. They had the choice. They could have gone quarterback or Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett, again, just like left tackle is just this incredible position to have an amazing player. So is a defensive end pass rusher type guy. So they went with the sure thing in Chase Young and basically said, hey, we'll figure out our quarterback another way and maybe another year. And sometimes as the person putting together a team, you have to build the team and then figure out your quarterback. Other times you get your quarterback and then figure out your team. But I think it was kind of a win-win. The Chargers have incredible pass rushers as well. And so, they needed that quarterback, and Justin Herbert is that guy. But there's something to the kid from Oregon being the quarterback in LA, staying on the West Coast. And there's some of that, like that's a fit. And I think Chase Young's a great fit for Washington, though. And he just feels like an NFC East player to me.
He does. And when you see him, you can't really question that they made a wrong decision because he's pretty good.
Do you remember the touchdown that he scored last year?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember interviewing him for like a Pro Bowl show that we did on ESPN. And basically, I was asking all these different guys, like, what was the biggest thrill of the year for you? Like, and I think his answer was something like, hey, when I scored this touchdown and I'm watching the play and I'm like, he looks like a running back. It looks like he could play like, basically if we said, all right, you have a year, what other positions could you train yourself to go play? He could find other positions to play. I mean, he's that special. And I'm just glad I played quarterback. I can't imagine having to try to block him. It's a scary thing to say, like, you'd rather just be sacked by someone like that. But the thought of having to block that person every play, during a game, no, thank you.
The funny thing on that play is Montez Sweat was running right with him, and he came from the other side of the field, and those were the first two down there. He throws a block at like the 5-yard line. I'm like, these are their defensive ends. But it is amazing. Last question, Matt, and I appreciate you doing this. How do you feel they stack up in the NFC East?
Fine. Like 100% fine. Like going back to last year, I was not a believer in Washington last year, and mostly because I wasn't really a believer in the quarterback play. I just wasn't sure how you could win consistently with how they started the year. Now they were impressive. I mean, go back to that Philadelphia Eagles game. That was sort of the beginning of the end for Carson Wentz in Philly. They couldn't block. They couldn't protect Carson. I forget how many times he got sacked, but it was twice as many as it should have been. I mean, it was a lot.
Like 8 or 9, I think it was.
A beat down, right? So now you look in that division. Offensive line's been an issue for the New York Giants. Like they're playing musical chairs there. Philly obviously is in a rebuild mode. Dallas, obviously their offense is great, but I'm not sure that they're a complete team right now. Is that defense fixed? Not yet. It's not. So why not? If you can bring stability and consistency to the quarterback position and stay healthy, there's no reason Washington can't win this division.
Matt, thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Had fun.